The shot didn't echo like in the movies. It just landed. Cold, fast final. That's how the afternoon broke apart in a little southern town that folks like to brag about in postcards. You know, tree-lined streets, a library with flower beds, 3 churches within 6 blocks. But on that corner outside the library of all places, a 14-year-old girl named Maya Collins signing the words, "I'm going home," and an officer's gun answered back. Her sketchbook hit the ground, first pages flipping open in the breeze drawings of superheroes with hearing aids, kids with open hands instead of fists. Maya wasn't flying, she was falling, and the whole street froze. A barista dropped a tray of coffee. A kid grabbed his mama's leg and started crying. But Maya didn't hear any of it. She couldn't. The cochlear implant behind her left ear had snapped off on impact and slid across the pavement with a faint electronic whine. Officer Rick Dalton still had his weapon raised. His partner shoved his arm down, whispering, "She's down, Rick. Jesus, she's down." But Dalton barked back. She wasn't responding to commands. She was throwing up gang signs. From across the street, the owner of the coffee shop, Tasha Grant, screamed, phone already recording, "She's deaf, you idiot. That's a child." Blood was pooling on the concrete, her fingers twitching like maybe she was still signing something. Nobody knew if it was a prayer or goodbye, but somewhere under her clavicle, a little sensor implanted 3 years ago with her father's consent lit up red. A silent alarm only one man would recognize, 300 miles away in a windowless conference room. Adrian Collins. Her father sat through a classified briefing. Former intelligence officer, the kind of man who built systems the world wasn't supposed to know about. A red light blinked on his wrist monitor. He didn't blink, didn't explain, just stood up, told the director family emergency, and walked out. No one dared stop him. Minutes later, Adrian was in a secured vault opening a steel case labeled Phantom 3. He lifted out a matte black drive and a guitar case that had never held music. On his way to the jet, he sent 2 encrypted words to an old contact. "She's down," in a forgotten bunker on the Coast Hacker. Kira Boone read the message mid-bite of instant noodles. "God damn," she whispered. She didn't need more details. She dumped the food, closed her laptop, and started packing her rig. By the time Adrian's jet cleared DC airspace, Kira was already tunneling into the small-town police department system, slipping past firewalls built on arrogance and budget cuts. Back in town, paramedics arrived too late to promise much. "She's just a kid," a nurse muttered. We were wheeling Maya through ER doors. Another nurse stopped cold at the intake line. "Next of kin, Adrian Collins." "You mean that Adrian Collins?" No one answered, but the look in their eyes said enough. Meanwhile, at the station, Chief Harold Nash slammed his phone down. A blurry video was already trending online, Maya's hands moving midair than the shot. He muttered, "Pray it doesn't go national." But it was too late. Hashtags for justice were spreading like fire. Adrian touched down on a private strip west of town. Civilian clothes, gray hoodie boots polished to military precision. Guitar case slung across his back like a burden. Kira was waiting. She said, "You didn't say much on the flight." Adrian's eyes were steel. "I was calculating." At the hospital, Maya lay pale under fluorescent lights, machines beeping too softly to trust. Adrian slipped inside her room, dressed as a janitor, sat beside her guarder, and held her hand. Her knuckles were raw from signing when she fell. He placed a tarnished ring in her palm, one that once belonged to her mother. "She'd tell you to keep fighting," he whispered. "So will I." Across town, Kara cracked the code wide open. A program called Predictive Risk Index, installed in every squad car, had flagged Maya's erratic hand movements minutes before Dalton even arrived. The override came from an internal terminal, not the field. Adrian listened as Kira read the log manual flag. Captain Marcus Heller. Adrian's jaw tightened. He didn't just shoot her. He hunted her. That night, Officer Miguel Ramirez sat alone in the break room haunted. He hadn't been close enough to stop the bullet, but he knew sign language enough to recognize Maya's gestures. When his captain pulled him aside, the threat was clear. You say that out loud and you'll vanish. Miguel drove instead to a boarded-up church, hoping the silence there might give him courage. Adrian was already waiting. You were there, Adrian said. Not close enough, Miguel muttered, but close enough to know she wasn't a threat. Miguel swallowed hard. I froze. I thought maybe Dalton saw something I didn't. Adrian stepped closer, voice low, sharp. You didn't pull the trigger, but you didn't stop it either. Miguel's hands shook. They told me to stay quiet or I'd lose everything, pension, health insurance. Adrian's reply cut like glass. If silence costs a child her life, what's your pension worth? Finally, Miguel whispered, I have a copy. He pulled a USB drive from his jacket. Hanley, the other officer, had backed up his body camera footage, hidden it under his wife's maiden name. This won't fix her, Miguel said. Adrian took the drive. It'll stop them from pretending it never happened. Kira uploaded the footage raw. No edits, no commentary, just truth. Maya walking home, hoodie too big, sketchbook in her arms, her hand signing. Dalton's bark. Stop moving! Then the shot. Silence followed by screams. The video detonated online. Lawyers, teachers, parents, everyone was talking. ASL instructors broke down each sign frame by frame. It wasn't defiance, it was language. The deeper they dug, the uglier it got. Emails between Captain Heller and the mayor herself. Elaine Brooks showed how they'd greenlit the program, even referred to youth volatility assessments in minority districts. In one message, the mayor called potential casualties acceptable loss. Adrian read it aloud. Voice steady, they called my daughter a loss. He confronted Brooks in a deserted rail depot, rain pounding outside. She arrived with an umbrella and arrogance. If this is blackmail, you're 2 decades too late. Adrian stepped into the sickly light guitar case by his feet. This isn't blackmail. It's truth. He pressed play on a recorder. Her own voice filled the air. If they can't follow standard commands, handle it before escalation. Brooks froze. You obtained this illegally, she snapped. No, Adrian said, stepping closer. I obtained it because you never thought you'd have to answer for it. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed, a live feed of her voice already blasting across national news. She stared at the screen in horror. Adrian's voice was calm. You're not watching the beginning, you're watching the fallout. By morning, the Justice Department had announced an investigation. Fortis defense stock tanked. Cops started quitting in droves. But Adrian didn't smile. He sat by his daughter's bed waiting. And then it came. A breath, a twitch of her fingers. Slowly she signed, Am I still me? Adrian's throat closed. Tears streaked his face. Always, he whispered, squeezing her hand. Days later, Maya insisted on going live. No polished stage, no makeup, just a hospital bed. IVs taped to her arms, an interpreter by her side. At 8 p.m., millions tuned in. Her fingers moved carefully, steadily. I wasn't dangerous, the interpreter read. I was different. And that was enough for them to shoot. The comments exploded. Classrooms of deaf kids signed along. A grandmother in South Carolina wept into her coffee. Maya ended with 5 words. I am not broken. Enough. The screen cut and the country roared. In court weeks later, she sat upright with a sling and neck brace, dry erase board in hand. When the prosecutor asked Officer Ramirez what the system flagged, his voice cracked. Her hands moved in loops. The AI read it as flight behavior. But what was she actually phoning, texting her father to say she was walking home? Dalton's jaw clenched, arms folded, but all eyes were on Maya. She uncapped her marker, wrote slowly, I will not die in silence. She held it up, cameras flashing. That photo hit the cover of magazines projected on the side of monuments. An anonymous engineer later leaked the code, proving the system was designed to ignore known disabilities in favor of obedience. Congress froze contracts overnight. States passed new laws. And Adrian, he slipped quietly out a side door as he always did. He wasn't chasing the spotlight. He just wanted his daughter heard. Weeks later in their backyard, Adrian held Maya's old sketchbook. On the last page she had written, "If they don't understand how I speak, maybe I'll make them learn." She walked out slowly, scars by her ears shining like medals. They stood side by side watching a storm roll in. Because justice isn't a promise. It's a process, a fight, a flame carried by hands the world once called broken, and now those same hands were building something new. So here's the question. Do you think silence can be more dangerous than violence? Or can silence, when it finally speaks, tear down walls louder than any gunshot? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If Maya's story shook you, share it. Subscribe and tell us, what kind of justice do you believe in?